Okay, you've been given the Calculate Valve Show Stack project, the Visual Studio project. We're just going to walk through this and make sure that you understand how the stack works when we call a procedure, pass parameters to it, and then create some local variables inside the procedure. So I've got my project open. I have my source window here. I'm going to go down to line 44 and set a breakpoint, and then I will hit Start Debugging. Once I do that, I've hit my breakpoint. I've already predefined or set up my memory window. In your case, you may not have, so you have to go to Debug, Windows, Memory, and then select Memory 1. I already have that done, so I'll go back here. I will switch this display so that the memory window displays so I'm showing 4-byte integers. That makes it a little bit more convenient. I've created this variable called stack start that conveniently points at a location in memory that lets me see what's going on with the stack. I set it up with ESP at the beginning, copied ESP, the value in ESP into that, and then I subtracted 28 from that so that I will be 28 bytes back in memory from where ESP started, so that I can, as I see items put onto the stack, I can see that in the memory window. So I'll just type in stack start. Notice I'm typing that without the ampersand into the memory window. And then once I do that, I see this. I have, notice I had moved all ones into this location pointed to by ESP when the program first started, and that's this location here. So the memory window is pointing at a location back by 28 bytes from that point. Now I'll continue stepping through my program and see items appear on the stack when I do a push operation and so forth. So I'll do my first step, and I pushed cval on there, and that's equal to a value of C. You can see how that changed in the window, the memory window. I'll now do a push the B value onto the stack. You can see that now in the memory window. And now A. Now we're going to do the call to calculate valves. So I want to do a step into here using F11 or the step into button on Visual Studio. Now I'm in calculate valves. So that value in red here is the return address that was pushed onto the stack by the call instruction. So now I'll step again, and I've just pushed the value of EBP on the stack. Now the next three instructions are going to update where EBP is pointing at so that it's easier to understand what the position of EBP is as we work inside the procedure. So I'm just going to go through these three instructions, and you can see that now we know where EBP is pointing at because this location that has EB, EB, and so forth is telling us that's where EBP is pointing at as we work with the procedure. So I want to allow or have two local variables for use inside the procedure. So to do that, I have to subtract 8 from ESP. So that's going to happen there. That no op is there for your convenience for setting a breakpoint. Now I'm going to make use of those parameters that were passed to the procedure, A param, B param, and C param. Those are actually defined up here. These are symbolic constants that make it easier to access things that are on the stack, so that I don't have to remember that A param was EBP plus 8. I just define this once and maybe keep a copy somewhere, and then when I'm working with a procedure like this, I can use the symbolic constants, and it just makes it a lot easier to know where things are on EBP. You don't be constantly having to remember which parameter is where relative to EBP. So I will now move A param into EAX, B param into EBX, and C param into ECX. Now I'm going to access a local variable that again is defined by a symbolic constant. Notice that the parameters were all EBP plus something, and all the local variables are EBP minus something. So now you should see the memory window updated as we move EBX into S1 local. And you can see there it's at this location here, which is EBP minus 4. I'm using that for calculation B minus A, so that got updated again. Now I'm going to move ECX into S2 local. And that's going to be updated because I'm using that location to calculate C minus A. Let's skip over this no-op again. Now I'm going to restore the original value that was in EBP because I had updated it so we knew where EBP was pointing to. Now I'm going to restore that to what it was before because I need to use it in this next step here. That's the original value of ESP when we entered the procedure. Now I'll pop EBP and now return from the procedure. And when I return, you see I'm down here at this restore ESP point where I want to put ESP back to what it was before I did the pushes of the parameters that were passed to the procedure. So I'm going to add 3 times type B word or 3 times 4 to ESP to put it was before I had done these 3 pushes up here. So I'll do that. And now I want to see where ESP is pointing currently, so I'm just going to move this this value here with all C's into that position that ESP is currently pointing to. And you can see that we're now back to the position that we were when we started the program before we had done the pushes and the procedure call and so forth. So we know that ESP has the correct value and and we've done all the bookkeeping we need to do to make sure the stack is working the way it should. Now I'm going to push 0 onto the stack. That's because it's I need that to indicate to the operating system that we're exiting with an OK status. And then I call exit. And that's it. Hopefully you now have a better understanding of how the stack works when calling a procedure and passing parameters to it and using local variables. Thanks.